Hi, this is Michael Uslan. You're listening to Batman on Film.
I'm vengeance.
I have given a name to my pain.
The Batman.
Always waiting for some Batman to save you.
It's simple. We kill the Bat of Gotham. I'm Batman.
Welcome to the Batman on Film official podcast, episode number 220. I am senior BOF contributor Ryan Lower. I've stolen the mic from Peter Vera just for one episode, so stick around and he'll be back for the next one. But I stole it for a really good reason, because I'm not alone. Back on this show is a special guest. Everybody around these here parts know him from the Murphyverse. It's Sean Murphy. Sean, thanks for coming back on the BOF podcast.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah.
Always great talking to you. I mean that. You're a genuine guy. We have good conversations, so usually it's just pretty painless.
Oh, good. Thank God. You're not just saying that. I feel like you wouldn't agree if it was actually really painful, but nice to say that.
I mean it. Yeah.
You've been very generous to Batman on Film, and especially to me, especially during Beyond the White Knight. So yeah, it was a real treat to have you back on here, and especially because like I actually got to meet you in person at C2E2, which was nice. And I'm not just saying this either. Yeah, finally I went to a con, and then finally I met you and your wife were at the booth signing, and I'm not just saying this because you're on here, but it was the best booth of everyone that was around. I've heard you talk on podcasts about how you criticize yourself on being a good communicator, but I think you're by far the most genuine and like easy discussion. I really struggle in those situations because I'm like, I want long conversations. I'm really bad at short, especially something like that. Cause I'm like, I can't talk too much because there's a lot of people that they want to get to this spot and have Sean signing and talking. So it's really like, I get in my own head of not knowing what to say, but I mean, it was really cool. It was great.
It's hard being in when you're waiting in line, because I used to wait in line to get stuff signed, and you've got like 45 minutes and you go through like, oh, this arrogant asshole with this long line, I bet he's gonna be a dick. And then you think, no, he's probably really nice. I just got to think of something clever. And it's like, well, I don't want to talk too much, but I want to be memorable, but I don't want to go across the line. And yeah, I think by the time you get up to the plate, it can be really nerve-wracking. But my job is to try to get people to relax as quickly as possible. So I'm big on like squeezing their shoulder or hug or, I say brother a lot to people. I don't know. I just try to find quick ways to diffuse them to make them understand that I was on the other side of the table too, many times,
Yeah. And
so,
then, I mean,
I want them to walk away happy.
Which I did. And I have like right up here over my shoulder, bought that. You drew a quick little Batman on it and you signed on it and everything. And I bought your Plot Holes book there too, which you signed. And I told my fiance, because I met some friends there. She didn't go, but she was like, so how was it? And I was like, well, the first one was going to Sean's table. And I said, I figured I was going to say Ryan Lower because Sean has to know thousands of names and stuff. And I'm like, so I just, I was prepared to say Batman on Film. We podcasted, and I said, all I had to say was Ryan Lower. And he stood up and he shook my hand. I was like, mission accomplished.
Yeah, no, I know you
for the day.
I know you. Yeah, I definitely know your face. I know your voice. I've listened to your reviews before we even met, so I always appreciated the kind words. You have a good radio voice, which I appreciate. So yeah,
really?
You probably could have just said something, and I might have known you.
I hate it, man. I think it's terrible. But I appreciate
you're
it.
Good.
That is, how does C2E2 match up with some other ones? Obviously, the Mecca is San Diego, but how's Chicago's measure up?
I love Chicago a lot. It used to be number 3 in the US, but this past year was just okay as far as attendance and money.
Oh, okay.
Usually at a show by like day 2, creators start talking and asking each other like, how are you doing? Are you selling prints? Is money good? And you start comparing notes pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And I think what happened to Chicago was Orlando happened the same weekend, and it seemed like
Oh,
Orlando was more lucrative for a lot of people. But I don't like Florida as much as I do Chicago. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'd love to go to Chicago every year, just because it's a great city,
yeah.
and I love meeting people from the Midwest because that's generally as close as I get to the Midwest.
Yeah. It's as I found out with the first con, it can get very expensive from a consumer's
Yeah,
side. So definitely
yeah.
more bang for my buck if more can go to Chicago because that's the one that I'll be able to go to. But I
Mhm.
did get to meet, I mean, Scott Snyder that day. I got to talk to him and get some autographs from him. Tony Daniel,
Yeah.
Brian Azzarello. I totally humiliated myself. I sounded like a total idiot, and so hopefully he
Brian's,
doesn't
yeah,
remember me.
no,
But
he won't. Brian's,
thank God.
you think he's annoyed. He's very quiet and a little quirky, I guess. And I
Yeah.
say this out of love, but yeah,
Hmm.
I can see why someone would think like, oh, did I upset him? Or he's just a little, I mean, I think anyone who does this job for too long can get a little odd after a while. So I wouldn't take it
Sure.
personally. I mean,
I didn't. Ugh.
Scott Snyder is like hyper social and hyper good at these things. Like not
Yeah.
everyone can PT Barnum the way that he can.
Yeah. I'm trying to think who else signature that day. I mean, I got Dustin Wen, which I'm
Yeah,
really
he's
glad
good.
because I've always been a big fan of his stuff. And then the
Yeah.
one regret didn't get Kevin Eastman. Line
Oh
just
yeah.
kept being too long, so I was trying to go elsewhere. But I mean,
Yeah.
I bleed green with the Turtles, and I didn't get his. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I hope he makes it back there someday.
Yeah. You
Um,
were saying that last time. I remember when we finished our podcast, you said I should do Turtles one day because you bleed green. Um
yes.
I was in Italy at Lake Como this year, and they put us
Mm,
up in this nice hotel on the lake, and Eastman was there with his fiance, his in-laws, and his team of
wow.
people. So I got to hang out with Kevin for a lot at the bar. And I asked him the story. I don't know if I told this here last time. So I'm a
Mm,
car guy. I heard that he bought this Acura NSX back in the 90s, which is, if you remember Pulp Fiction,
mhm.
the wolf guy that shows up to fix that situation. He drives this car that looks like a Ferrari, but it's actually an Acura. Anyway, I heard that when he got Turtle's money, I picture him having a pocket full of cash,
Yeah.
looking like a dumpy comic book artist. And he goes into an Acura dealership and he's like, I'd like to buy that car. And they look at him and they're like, no. And they walk him towards, where they sell Honda Civics. So I'm telling this story to Kevin because I'm like, Kevin, I've been telling this story for years about you. Tell me if it's true, but let me finish it. So I tell him up to that point. So at that point, he leaves the dealership. He goes to another Acura dealership across town, buys the car, and in my mind, he goes back and does the Pretty Woman Julia Roberts
Yeah.
moment where it's like, big mistake. You
Yeah.
used to wait on me. And I looked at him like, is that generally how it went down? And he goes, actually, I bought two of those cars. I was
Awesome.
like, yeah, I'm like, oh, it's even more amazing than I thought. And he goes, yeah, I
Yeah.
got a red one and a white one, and I got one for the East Coast, one for the West Coast, and then I bought a tank. But it's funny because with the
A
way he
tank.
talks about it, he
Yeah.
still comes across as low key. He doesn't seem like he's being arrogant or anything like that. He's just very
Awesome.
much like a buddy that you would see at a comic book shop.
Yeah. See, it gives me even more regrets. I
Yeah,
didn't stand in that line and make it in that line. But I mean, the whole day was I mean, I didn't take any breaks, and that's why I think I kind of like, sounded like an idiot to Azzarello because I had short sleep. It was a long day, and I hadn't even eaten yet, and it was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I think all that just started crashing because we went and
yeah,
we ate lunch right after that. But I'm glad
yeah,
he won't remember me, and he doesn't listen
yeah.
to this unless he does.
I don't know.
Um,
Maybe he does.
yeah, maybe he does now. Yeah, maybe his
I'm
buddy
gonna send him a
Lee.
link. I'm gonna
Yeah.
send him a link of you shit talking him.
There you go. Maybe his buddy Lee will listen to it and be like, "Hey, Brian, check out this podcast because this guy is an idiot. Remember him?"
That's
Brian, like,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
that
No, it's
guy.
funny because I felt like I wasn't connecting with Brian too, but I do connect with Lee on a personal level. Like Lee and I
Yeah.
get along. And I think at one point I was like, I don't think Brian likes me. And he's like, no, everyone feels that way when they meet Brian. Trust me, he likes you. He's just like that sometimes. So it made me feel
Uh,
better.
well, my if this makes it any worse, which it will, I think my last words to him were, "Good job, Brian." And then I just walked
Nice.
away, and So maybe he will remember all that.
You can be the guy that yells, "I love Batman's cop."
Oh
You
yeah,
scream it to him at the top of your lungs. He'll never
yeah.
forget you.
Okay, noted. Jot that down now. Last time you were on here was, I mean, it was over a year ago, and we were talking about you're about to bring up the second half of Beyond the White Knight, and we're gonna get to the main event here. But I kind of I definitely wanted to touch base with you on that because there's the hardcovers come out. I haven't looked to see when. I feel like a trade paperback is gonna come out soon, sometime soon-ish. And you've had some space since it wrapped up, so just kind of like looking back on it, how do you feel? And you can take that answering it any way that you want.
Yeah. Man, my wife likes Volume 3 the best. She says it's the most well-paced, most fun. I think my favorite part was definitely writing Bruce and hologram Joker, who's sort of his buddy, but
Yeah.
very helpful actually, and loves to pick on him and annoy him, but probably really cares about Bruce in a really weird way. Like I've never read a Batman story like that. And tend to have this like sort of love triangle with Harley Quinn where they're married, but they don't really kiss. They're just sort of like really, really close and they don't really know
Mhm.
what they are. And I didn't, want to lean into that too much. But yeah, I was really proud of it. I think it's got the best art out of all three. I think Curse is probably my favorite because I'm a history buff, but I think a lot of readers Curse is the weakest, especially in the US. I just don't think people really care about historical stuff. But when I go to Europe, I think Curse is the most favorite there because
Hmm.
it's got like old school British, French, sales, age of sail type stuff, and they really like that. Um, so it's interesting getting the different reactions out of people. But yeah, I felt like Curse took the most risks by making Bruce not a Wayne and getting into where his money comes from. Um,
Killing everyone.
but yeah, that too. Yeah, I know. I should have had more time with that. Just murdering everyone in a few pages is a little not as climactic as it could have been.
No,
But again,
White
I
Knight
didn't think I was.
has balls. Okay, it has balls, and it proved it in Cursed with the slaughtering everybody. So I
Yeah,
applaud the move for sure.
thanks, thank you.
All this time later, but
Yeah, but yeah, I think the hardest part about Beyond was just writing so many characters. I've
no.
never written a team book before, and I just felt like if I didn't include someone, I was gonna have a reader get mad at me. Like, what about Nightwing? Why don't you talk about this? Why don't you talk about that? And I wanted to get into Jason Todd, but also Terry. And
Mhm.
yeah, I really respect writers that can write team books and make them feel balanced. It's like you have six spinning plates of characters, and every time a plate starts to wobble, you have to spin it again to keep it up. But it's a lot to focus on. And yeah, I think if I rewrote it in hindsight, I might try to get rid of a few characters, or maybe not kill them, get rid of them. Um, but for volume 4, I think I'm going to cut back on the amount of Robins and just focus on Superman and Batman. Um,
Gotcha.
introduce some more sort of Justice League characters in the peripheral. They don't have powers yet. I forget if I spoiled what I wanted to do for volume 4 with you last time.
No, well, I don't know. You told us.
Yeah, okay.
You're pretty open. You're pretty open.
Yeah. Well, if anyone doesn't remember last time, I think I said for volume 4, I really wanted to get at the Justice League. So Bruce and um, Clark sort of spend the first half of the book fighting. So this is what I'm going to do in a couple of years. And then Bruce manages to like take Clark's powers away, but in doing so, he opens up the Stargate in the Fortress of Solitude, and he realizes there are these people coming to Earth called Kryptonians, and he's just neutralized the only kid that might have helped him.
Mhm.
So it's up to him and Clark to go through the gate to get Clark's powers back, and helping him, like the team of scientists there, it's Justice League characters, but none of them have powers yet. So it's like a quick way to get into like Wally West and Diana Prince and John Stewart and all that stuff. That's kind of where my head's at now. I haven't started writing it yet or anything like that, but yeah, again, I guess I'm setting myself up for another team book, so I'm gonna have to try to balance that.
Well,
But
I
I
think
kind of miss just sorry.
oh no, go ahead. So no, you're fine. Go ahead.
No, I gravitate more towards stories that have fewer characters. But for some reason, with these Batman stories, I just keep getting ideas that require more characters, and I just have to follow that, you know?
Yeah. So, I mean, when we got to the last page, that revelation in Beyond number 8, and it was Superman on there, and
Yeah.
then it was even released probably, I don't know how, like a couple days maybe, the surprise cover that you drew
Mhm.
of Superman on the cover.
Yeah.
Looking at your White Knight universe, it's very grounded. It's
Mhm.
very not isolated, but it sticks within Gotham, aside from Curse
Yeah.
that does the backstory. So in my head, a little bit, it's almost like, huh, what made you lean toward, let's go ahead and expand a little bit. Let's step into, because I think when you include Superman, it does start to become a sci-fi story.
Yeah, it is. You're right. I just thought it would be a really great ending if
Hmm.
we opened up to Superman, like because usually when you get to volume 3, you wind it up. But for me to hit the Superman button at the very end, I just wanted to get people excited.
Hmm.
Um, Even if I never came back to do another, I just thought it would be a cool way to bridge that gap. Um, and it also helped motivate um, bad guy in the book. Shit,
Powers.
what's his name? Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, so Powers is the bad guy when he's doing pulling all the strings because he's convinced there's some kind of invasion, um, or some kind of war that's going to happen. And a few readers kind of saw what was coming, but a lot of them also had no idea, like, oh, like a invasion from another country. What does that mean? And when you realize that he's just terrified of Superman and taking precautions to try to, you know, guard against the possible threat, Powers' motivation becomes very reasonable. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah.
And I just really like writing bad guys that they're still bad, but you at least can feel why they're acting a certain way. You know, it
Yeah.
helps keep them more balanced that way. I'm not trying to excuse anything that Powers or anyone like Lex Luthor does, but it's just more interesting where it's like, oh yeah, I can see how he has a point. Like still a bad guy, but yeah, sure. Um,
That
but you
makes
know,
them
I'm not.
stronger villains always, I think. Is I mean, you see anything, I'm a sucker for behind the scenes stuff of movies, TV shows, anything, and writers, producers, everybody will always say of, a stronger villain is, they
Yeah,
don't think that they're wrong, and not expecting the
yeah,
audience to also side with them, but it's like, oh, if he,
yeah,
like, to just understand that, like, their point
yeah,
of view, that
yeah,
makes him more dangerous. It adds weight to him and stuff too. So
yeah,
totally agree with what you're saying.
yeah. No, that was the best compliment that Larry Gainham, who works at DC, gave to me. Was like, we really like that you're writing villains. You're not making them redeemable, but you're at least making them human. And I think that no one's really rewriting villains the way you are, which is
Hmm.
nice because I'm not really trained as a writer, as you know. Um, but yeah, I don't read as much comics as I should, but I know a lot of villains just come across as one note, very simple, very arched, and yeah, just because it's comics doesn't mean it can't be more nuanced for me,
Yeah,
you know.
definitely. So you just said, I think I've heard you say before, you've said you're not
Not
with
really a
comics. You
writer.
don't well, yes, I've heard you say that. Uh but the comics, you don't read as much comics as you should. But do you think that maybe that's a strength in you taking on Batman, is because you're
Yeah.
you're not battling all these, like, oh, but wait,
Hmm.
this story here, to where you're not just, oh,
Yeah.
without thinking about it, you
Yeah.
copied some other story beat without knowing it.
Sometimes it helps because you have an outsider perspective.
Yeah.
Like I think my stuff probably appeals to new readers who don't know a lot of the lore. They can just sort of normie can come to it fresh. Um, but other times I'll screw up the order of the Robins, you know?
Oh yeah, I've heard this, and I think I get it. I do. And I mean, it's your material, so you'd have heard more than I would have, but I have not come across people that have an issue with Jason Todd being the first.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm just
Yeah.
sort of poking fun at myself, but I can imagine to gone as far as I have, as far as I know, the only one right now who has their own Batman universe.
Hmm.
Um, there's people who look at that with jealous eyes, and when they realize I haven't even read that many Batman comics, I'm sure it's probably a little annoying.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
I think that's why I tread carefully because I don't want to upset anybody.
Yeah. So with your own universe, as you just said, I've kind of often wondered too, how much power does that give you in the sense of, does anything ever have to be run by you? As an example, they want to do an animated movie. Does anything have to come to you? Something with continue the White Knight universe without you? Does somebody have to come to you, or do you have order? Do you have of any of that?
No, they can
No.
do
Okay.
they can't do sequels without me. Like I wrote that
Okay.
in my contract. Um, wh- I remember with Watchmen, the way the contract was designed is DC could do sequels, prequels, whatever.
Hmm.
Um, so when I came up with my contract, I tried to put in there that I would be the only I have to be involved in any White Knight sequels, and I think they agreed to that. And it's not because I didn't trust them; it's just because it's my baby, why
Yeah.
not? And if they make a cartoon out of it or a movie, or if they use something in the next Matt Reeves movie, they don't have to tell me. I think what happens is if they use one of my characters that I created and I have equity in that character, um, then I make a percentage of some kind. Owning equity in new characters is an important thing, and it's paperwork a lot of writers don't think to fill out. And why would the companies want you to know about that
Yeah.
paperwork,
Hmm.
So it is what it is. Um, but I think if they use your stuff enough, you will get like a $5,000 check. But if they made a White Knight universe series of animation, I just think they have to pay me like one check. I don't think they have to include me in anything. Of course, I think it's important for them to reach out to me because I think companies know that if they cut out the creators, word gets out pretty quickly online.
Yeah.
And companies like to have goodwill with their customers, so I'm pretty sure that they would, just because why wouldn't they? And I think
Yeah.
they would know how annoyed I would get and how vindictive I can be. So it's probably better just to tell me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I haven't heard of anything that they're doing that. I talked to Lee Bermejo after watching um Pattinson movie, and I
Hmm.
know he was like paid to work on some of that stuff, and I think that movie is great. It looks like a Lee Bermejo movie, honestly. Um I know they used the collar on Batman, and people said that they took it from me, but I don't know. I think it's more of a Lee movie. But Lee said that they might be using my stuff for the sequel, but he's not really sure, and no one can really find out. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. The White Knight Jason Todd is going to be in the
Yeah,
Batman. You heard it here first. There you go. Somebody's going to twist some words and
yeah,
create a
that's all
story
right.
out of it.
Yeah.
Uh, I think I asked you last time too, does that also include with McFarlane toys? Like there doesn't need to be any clearance from you if Todd wants to
No,
do, he can just do
no,
it.
they just yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, sometimes I find out I'll see some sketches or production photos, sometimes not. I don't think it's deliberate. I just think um Todd has a very small team around him, and there's only so much they can do. And checking with every creator about every
Yeah.
toy, they should, of course. It would be nice if everyone got a heads up, but it's just not the way the system is designed. But it's
Hmm.
not personal.
Yeah.
If I get a few in the mail, then I'm happy.
I would I would dig and hope that a Beyond would be coming. I don't know
Mm.
what that a design for Joker would be different, but obviously a Bruce is different. A bearded Bruce Batman.
So
Sign me up for that.
I wrote to Todd's people, and I never got a response. That's okay. But I said, hey, if you're going to do figures, I would suggest doing a Bruce bearded figure, but you could have two other heads. You could have beard, you could have um, no cowl at all,
Hmm.
just his face, and then you could have Joker's face because at one point Joker like takes over his body, so you get
Yeah.
three figures in one. And then I said, if you do a Joker figure, you should make the base of it translucent because it's kind of, a hologram, so it glows a little bit, or you can kind of see through him. And I thought it was clever, but I
Yeah.
never got a response, so maybe not. So,
They read it and they were like, maybe if we don't respond, he'll forget that he came up with the idea.
I mean, that'd be
Which then we
awesome. I don't
did.
care. I
Yeah.
mean, even if they send me one, I'd be like, oh, great, they read my email. Like, I'm
Yeah.
happy.
I'm a happy fan. They read my
Yeah.
email. Well,
Honestly, like, I want to get a 1/18 scale diecast of the Batmobile I designed would be
Yeah,
it for me. Like I don't really the other stuff is nice, but I don't tend to keep most of that stuff. But like a diecast 1/18 scale, I would love that.
there you go. Yeah. Well, I sent you every time I did a review, and then when I just did the episode on my podcast a couple months ago, and I sent you that, and I kind of mean of like this was like the funnest White Knight chapter to follow, I think, out of all of them. I
Oh,
think
thanks.
that this
Yeah.
is probably your I think this is, and this is not knocking any of them because I'm a fan of all of them, but I think this is probably your best looking one too. And
Thanks.
was this a different colorist on this one than
Yeah.
previously?
Yeah, I worked with Matt for Hollingsworth for the first
Okay.
two, and then for this one, I went with Dave. Dave and I actually go back pretty far to Hellblazer. Um, I think they're both really talented, honestly.
Hmm.
They're both like A-level colorists for sure.
Gotcha. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. You had a lot of elements to juggle here, and it just I said like a refreshing thing with your stories. And so, I mean, this yes, your art, but also with your writing is that it is just like going. It's always going. And that's
Yeah.
such a big thing with me with comics a lot of times, because sometimes it can be you turn a page and there's just panels of dialogue and it starts to feel like, oh man, this is going to be a
Yeah.
meaty one, whereas
Yeah.
you don't slow down. Yours just
Yeah.
kind of feels like it just keeps going all the way
Yeah.
through. And then matched with
I,
your art was great and the coloring was great. So yeah, I think it was a home run.
I feel like the so I don't really do inner monologue balloons at all. It's just
Yeah.
dialogue or voiceover if there's a cutscene. Um, and I wonder if readers prefer to have inner monologues because it gives the writer a chance to like do some prose in a way, you know?
Hmm.
So sometimes I'm always wondering, like, is there a lot of inner monologues in comics because writers just don't feel like they're getting their fingerprints on the property enough? Like, is it not enough to write direction and dialogue? You need to have like the diary of Bruce Wayne inside of his head.
Hmm.
Why is inner monologuing so big in comics? You know, is that why? Is it just the ego of writers? You know, maybe.
Maybe part of it.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but then I thought, well, it slows the story down and it
Hmm.
makes the reader feel like maybe they're getting more for their money. So maybe the way I'm doing it is too fast. Maybe it's not the best way to experience comics, you know?
A lot
So
of
I'm
times just
always,
depends on the story too, because as much as I say that of yours is just
yeah,
constantly going, you don't have the internal monologue. And I love stories. So The Long Halloween's my favorite Batman story. That's got internal monologue, and it totally works. I love it and
yeah,
everything. It just
yeah,
I guess depends on the story. And I think your style with Batman, like each book, it's just like bam, just goes. So
yeah.
totally works.
Yeah, I try to, well, I come from a sort of screenwriting mentality of everything should move the story forward. There's
Hmm.
no detour that's that's unnecessary. Cut dialogue, trim it back, and trim it again. Um, yeah, so I think they're probably a really fast read. Um, I think also, well, things like the Batman Devastation Fund was kind of a
Hmm.
complicated idea to
Yeah.
explain to a reader, because no one was really that interested in how money and politics work in that level. So it's like, okay, I think this Batman Devastation Fund is clever. I think it would make sense, but I don't want to bore the audience talking about funding in, welfare
That's why people buy
community.
comics, Sean.
So it's like, all right, I have two word balloons to get this through, and then I gotta cut it because no one's gonna want to read too much. So I was trying to find like the most interesting way and concise way to. And it's funny because when I listen to reviews, some people got every word and understand
Mhm.
it completely. Some have a vague idea that something's going on. It doesn't really matter to the read. So it's always interesting to see how it goes over.
Yeah. I mean, it went over. It
Yeah,
works. I don't
thanks.
think it slowed up at all either. So, as much as I could just continue to pick apart um your White Knight books and everything. Last question on that. Do you know of anything as far as absolute, which I'm sure you get asked about tons of times, but nerds are always going to ask.
I don't know anything definitive yet.
Okay.
I know that they'll probably get around to it someday. Um, and I would guess they would get around to an animation, something or
Yeah.
other eventually too. I mean, they do seem to get around to it, you know. Um,
The
yeah, if I
completest
know when,
nature
I'll.
in me the completest nature in me struggles with like how would they do an absolute, because they'd want to include everything, but to me everything is Harley Quinn, the two Red Hood issues, the current generation Joker, Uh, and now you're talking an absolute that's almost 40 pages, and it's like, or 40 issues, and it's like, well, now that's getting pretty big. That's getting pretty thick.
that's a
It's getting
lot.
pretty heavy. That's a lot to.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a spine. I don't know if a spine that size can withstand that much.
Hey y'all, it's Bill Ramey, founder of Batman on Film. Let's take a quick pause in this podcast for these words from our sponsor.
Yeah, they could do volume 1 absolute first, just see how it goes. I mean, they would make money on that, then do 2 and 3, and then feel if they want to move on to I guess 3 would have to be Harley White Knight, and 4 would be Beyond. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they should just do the first 2 and see how they feel.
Yeah, I'd be hard to imagine that it wouldn't be successful and make some money, and that's what they're in the business of doing, is making money.
Well,
so
yeah, but that's how it should work. Yes,
that's how it should. Yes, okay, there you go.
That's all I'll say.
How it should work. Yeah. Well, I want to definitely move on, because the main reason I reeled you in here is because, and I mean, perfect segue and link to move on to Zorro, from Batman, because they have been linked for decades. But you did say, I remember, and not saying you said it like on here first, last year, the first time that you were on the show, and you mentioned about buying the rights to Zorro, and that'll be coming, which is obviously exciting on my part, of like, oh, cool, I'd like to see your spin on that. Instantly in my mind, I thought of Edmund Wayne and Curse, and he has shots with the, with the sword stuff, and I'm like, I bet he could do a kick-ass swashbuckler story of some kind. And there we are.
In a way, the Edmund Wayne was like a dry run for Zorro. I licensed the character from ZPI, who owns Zorro, and they made me we made a great deal together, so I'm excited to try this out. But yeah, when I started drawing the first issue, I really struggled with how to handle like the sash, the vest, the cape. And you think it would all be second nature because Batman is just black on black as well. But I don't know what threw me off, because I was looking at Toth, and it was so good that it was throwing me off. And then I found like I was trying to draw Toth and not myself. So I think when I look back at the Edmund Wayne stuff, I was like, oh, like I had this figured out and I completely forgot about it. So I'm just gonna take that belt, that sash, and that this and that and there, and boom. So that's when it started to click. I'd say, halfway through issue 1 of Zorro is when it started to look better.
Nice.
I find it takes like an issue or 2 to get into any new character.
So it's called Zorro Man of the Dead. And it's launching on Kickstarter. So I have quite a few questions, but I want to give the floor to you of what is Zorro Man of the Dead?
So it takes place during Day of the Dead, or Dia de los Muertos, which is the Spanish Mexican holiday sort of around Halloween. And I knew that we were launching in fall. I'm a big Halloween fan. Everyone in comics is. So I thought like it could be kind of like a holiday book in a way. And it would also fuel the story because it takes place in modern times. It's like Narcos, that show Narcos, meets Don Quixote, where there's this kid who is confused. He has a psychotic break, and he thinks he's Zorro, and he starts going after drug dealers and killing them. And what starts out as a joke turns into a really serious problem. He's really good at it. And his sister is sort of caught in the middle because she fears for her brother's safety, but she's also a driver for the cartel. And that was what allowed me to get the car into the book, because I won't do any book that doesn't have a cool car.
Gotta have a car.
Yeah. And the town that they're operating in is called La Vega. And if you think back to Diego de la Vega, it's like Diego of La Vega. So this town is convinced that they are the real historical home of Zorro, who was a real person. So they're aware of the movies, they're aware of the comics and everything, but they think that Zorro was real and started in their hometown. And every year they celebrate Day of the Dead and Zorro. So this kid appearing is like Zorro coming back to life. So I was able to sort of make it make sense to the holiday aspect of the book.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah.
How does an idea like that even originate? Was it like, did you latch into Zorro first, or did you start to create this idea and you were like, oh, Zorro fits that?
Good question. I had an idea to do a modern day Zorro book, And I didn't know he was going to be crazy. I thought, I don't know, if he have guns or maybe a sniper, who knows?
Hmm.
And then I'm like, well, I really want to draw a car. What car should I give him? And I thought, ooh, an El Camino would be cool. And I just think from there, like I cut to the scene where he's in the back of an El Camino slashing people as his sister drives through town or something. So I was like, ooh, who would he be killing? Maybe drug dealers. So I was watching Narcos at the time. Um, yeah, and I think the whole idea just sort of started there. And it wasn't even till the end that I started to think of Day of the Dead and how that might weave everything together. So it
Yeah.
really was just the visual of Zorro, waving a sword around in the back of an El Camino with his sister driving and making like, I want to draw that. How do I get there?
So there's, I know, going off topic, but it's related to Batman films. So my podcast that I always do, a question I always ask whoever's on is when we talk about a story of a favorite panel throughout the whole book. What's a favorite panel? And I always stick to kind of what you were just describing, the sense of like, for me, my favorites are usually ones that I can kind of create my own story. If I got that out of context, didn't know dialogue, didn't know before or after panels, just one panel, I'll create a story.
Yeah.
That's what just sticks with me. And it seems like Zorro and an El Camino. You got
Yeah.
yourself a comic book series right there.
Yeah, as goofy as that is, I was convinced there's got to be a way to ground that to be a
Hmm.
really good story. It also allowed me to do a modern story, but there's a lot of flashbacks to the supposed original Zorro. So you get the
Hmm.
classic pulp Zorro as well in there. Um, yeah, so I think I've got something here. I also I worry that I may have needed more than 4 issues, but I'm gonna stick to 4 because it's all I have time for. But getting together covers, variants, getting friends of mine, Lee Bermejo, Adam Hughes, Ryan Sook, Teo, um, and working with Massive on this sort of new hybrid publishing system that I tried to develop has been really cool. Going back to you talking about absolutes, people
Hmm.
ask me that a lot. Like you said, yeah. They also ask like, how come I can't get Batman White Knight in black and white outside of France?
The
And
Noir
I said,
edition.
well, DC doesn't do that. So I thought, well, if I do Zorro my way and use this crowdfunding system, but also have a diamond distribution, traditional aspect to it as well, I can offer those deluxe items to customers who aren't getting what they want from my other books.
Yeah.
Um, and I'd like to be seen. And it's really a perfect delivery system because, you
Hmm.
know, Kickstarter is trustworthy. I don't flake out. Everyone knows that. I get to play around with some stuff and um, try to give people items that they normally wouldn't be able to get. Um, the one I'm actually really excited about with Zorro is the best version of the book will be called the Masterclass Edition, and it'll be over 200 pages. It'll have the story in the front, but the back will have they'll talk about my favorite pages, why they worked, my least favorite pages, why I don't think they worked. Really talk about the artistic process for like it's designed for a student in a way.
Hmm.
And I know it's going to have a higher price point, but I think that for what I'm trying to make is a college course, but there's no classroom. So if you think about like $200 for a textbook that's going to teach you a lot of things, it's not so bad, honestly.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to try this to see if people would get into it. I know I often don't do enough of sketching or live stuff or explaining what I do. So this is sort of a way to put it all on paper, to just tell people everything. Like I want to have essays about, how to be careful on social media, tips in marketing, what to watch out for in comics, how to know who to trust in comics, how to maintain stability and not get weird being a person that stays alone working, you know what I mean? Like just like
Yeah.
little tips like that. Um, yeah, also like tips about writing, why is Zorro always surrounded by red? What is the symbolic meaning of the color red? And sort of talk people through the creative process. Yeah, so I'm interested to put all that into the masterclass edition. And if it goes over well, then every book I do from now on, I would like to have a masterclass edition, just like volume 2, volume 3, volume 4, and sort of build an educational base for what I'm doing.
I think it's brilliant. And
Thanks, man.
it surprises me sometimes too. So, I mean, I don't know if you saw. I can never. I don't know what the accent mark on the A. Raphael looks like Grandpa, but it's the A at the end has an accent mark to it.
Yeah,
And he just
and
did a
Pop.
Gargoyle of Gotham Batman issue, and they released at the same time a noir edition and then a regular colored edition. And I went ahead and snagged both. But I mean, it was what you just said of like, I know I've heard you say that before too, of like they don't want to do noir editions for some reason, or black and white, and yet they just did now. So maybe, hopefully,
I
like
could ask them.
offering
Yeah,
that up now and testing the waters.
yeah.
And I
As
guess
far
we'll
as
see.
I should talk to DC again. I keep being the squeaky wheel about black and white version, and they say they want to, but then they don't get back to me. And if Raphael's figured out a way, then I'm all in. So yeah, let me
Yeah.
see. Let me take a pass at them again to see if they'll do that.
I mean, it was really cool too. Just I mean that issue alone. But back to you, to your version, I really like this idea. I can't draw a stick figure to save my life. It's a terrible one, but I do write. I mean, for my job, but then on my own too. And so just like writing, I want to absorb, read as much too. So to get firsthand like
Yeah,
your thoughts, seeing them on the page and stuff, I think would benefit a lot of people. And then people that also draw, I think would benefit them too. What are all
yeah.
the tiers for Kickstarter for this?
So we'll have the basic 4 issue tier, so you get all four in a packet.
Mhm.
Um, so we'll have one set of covers for the Kickstarter, and then a separate set of everything for stores. And there's going to be some like overlap when they all come out. But if you want the super cool deluxe edition, you should probably hit Kickstarter first. If
Mhm.
you just want to support your LCS, you can just wait for the book to come out. If you get issue one through, if you get all 4 issues through Kickstarter, you'll probably receive that package by the time issue 3 hits your LCS. But there'll be like metal variants, foil variants, the Adam Hughes cover. I got Humberto Ramos. I have a Joe Quesada Zorro cover. But I also have tiers for retailers. So if you're a shop and you want to get in on this,
Mhm.
um, I don't know what the price point will be right now, but we'd like to sell you 20 copies for massive discount so you can sell it in your store and make some money. Like I
Yeah.
don't want the idea of us using crowdfunding to be a threat to the shops. I think this is really additive. I think it's a different customer base too that buys things online versus the Wednesday Warrior. So that's
Mhm.
kind of where this experiment comes in. It's Plot Holes. I sort of did this. I was coordinated, but I had 2 years between when the trade came out and then when I started releasing issues with Massive. With Zorro, we're gonna sort of overlap it and see what happens. It's basically like working with Image, but Image is helping me run, they're helping me get the money from crowdfunding by helping me manage it and get advertising and the stuff that I just can't do by myself. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited about my relationship with Massive. It's also with Whatnot. So they have sort of an inside line on those auctions, and they're going to walk me through the process of how to make extra money on that. And then,
Wow.
the third round of doing this would be me selling this book to Europe. Um, so I'm sort of taking the one book and making money on it 3 times. One with Kickstarter, one with Diamond, and then one with the European. Yeah.
Bravo.
Yeah,
Well, it's
thanks.
it's sort of a reverse engineered way of doing it, which I really, really like actually. And I know you did it slash kind of still are doing it with the plot holes and the hardcover, like the complete story. You
Yeah,
could buy that early, and now, like currently, right now, issues are
yeah.
starting to come out of each chapter with that, which I think is cool. Because I snagged the John Samariva variant of issue one because I've
That
I've
yeah, the
I've
Calvin
gotten
and
to talk to
Hobbes.
John, and I really like his style and
Yeah.
stuff too. So I was like, oh, I want that one.
John
But
is
I
the
think it's
sweetest guy in
cool.
comics. He's the sweetest guy in
Excellent.
comics, hands down. Yeah. I got him to do a Zorro cover too.
Oh,
He's so
sweet.
professional and talented and easy to work with. And yeah, as far as I'm concerned, he always has a place doing covers for me.
Awesome. I mean, that's good to hear. I mean, I'm still like a nobody, and he just responded to a message I sent him like, "Would you like to talk about your Batman Ninja Turtles comic?" And he's like, "Okay." And we talked for like 2.5 hours. He was awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm glad. Yeah, he's great.
so I'm kind of curious, what's by going the Kickstarter route, I guess for you, what's different than going the like going through DC or a bigger company through comics?
Yeah.
Why the preference on Kickstarter? Just more control of what you want to do,
Yeah.
basically.
So I don't have to. If I want to do, I'm gonna have a version of Zorro that's black and white. Oh, I
Hmm.
forgot to run through the rest of the tiers.
Oh yeah,
If you want
yeah,
me to go back through
yeah.
that,
Let's go ahead and go
sorry.
back to that. Yeah.
So we'll have just the 4 issues. Then we'll have I think a soft cover or a hardcover. Everything comes with a set of prints. We'll have 11 by 17 black and white artist edition, one of those big ones that
Hmm.
has 88 pages in it. If you like that, you should probably just back the Kickstarter because I don't know if shops generally like to carry that stuff because it's so big.
Yeah.
Um, we're gonna have a one cover. You can pay to have your face on a wanted poster in the cover itself. So I'm gonna do an homage to the Days of Future Past X-Men cover where Wolverine and is it Jean Grey who are on the bottom, and there's all these posters of dead mutants behind them.
Um, I,
Well,
Whoop,
it's like
Google.
X-Men 141, I think it is. Yeah, Uncanny X-Men 141, I think. Anyway, so then we'll have the masterclass that I mentioned. We're also gonna have
Yep, you're on it.
a Zorro party in Dallas next year is the plan.
Wow.
We'll have like a exclusive event. You buy a ticket, you get a +1. We'll have drinks, food, one-on-one hangout time. I did this with Potholes too, and I had people just come to Maine and hang out in my studio. And yeah, I mean, people pay money to hang out with me, so
To
happy
hang
to
out with
take
you.
their money. Yeah. So yeah, we're still finalizing a lot of the tiers, but we're trying to have something for everybody. We don't have the buy a page tier this time, but
Mhm.
generally it's what we did with Potholes, but just sort of dialed up a bit
Gotcha.
with
That's
better
great.
covers. Like I didn't have an Adam Hughes cover for Potholes, so I'm hoping this Zorro one goes way further. Potholes did about 260,000, so we're hoping to blow past 300 at least for this campaign. But the industry's also in kind of a weird place right now, so we'll
Yeah.
see how it goes.
I mean, hopefully great. I mean, especially going, I don't know if you prefer IP or original ideas or if you like bouncing back and forth.
Yeah, I think bouncing back and forth.
Yeah.
Working with ZPI really allowed me to work out my salesmanship
Mhm.
muscle and reading through contracts, hiring a lawyer and trying to make a deal and getting on the phone and marketing. Like there's a lot of different, normally my day is just spent drawing or writing, but to do all these other things and manage like that, it's fun and challenging. It is distracting. Like it's hard to do everything at once, which is why I hired a couple of assistants. Um, but I think I can understand sort of what Todd McFarlane feels from time to time. I mean, I'm not at his level with what he's doing, but I don't think that managing like this is for everyone in
Mhm.
comics. Like, I don't know many people that would be able to get all this stuff done and chase down Mateo Scalera for a fucking Zorro cover. And I say that with love,
Yeah.
Mateo.
Does that end up making it almost more of a relief when you do get to sit back down and draw? Because it's like, back in my element.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things that I wish I try to get my assistants to do. Like, what can you take off my plate for me?
Mhm.
But getting some artists to respond, like if it's an editor from Massive they never heard of, they might not respond. If it's me,
Mhm.
they'll respond. So there's no avoiding having to do a lot of the work myself as much as I
Yeah.
try to delegate.
Yeah.
Um, hopefully I'll
I get
get
that.
better at the process as it goes on. But to answer your question, like I love Zorro and I don't mind trying to get IPs and play with them.
Mhm.
Um, like I there's some other 80s TV shows that I really like, and I know that if they were like a Boom comic, it might not do that well, but if you give it to me and let me do it my way and market it through Kickstarter with extra goodies, I know I can make a lot of money with that. So I might look
Don
into more
Murphy's
IP.
Golden Girls.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Man, you ruined it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Damn it.
Yeah, well, I
Sorry.
gotta
We'll cut it
I
out. We'll
gotta
cut it
draw them in
out.
a really, really sweet car though, is the problem.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be great.
Um, yeah, Murder She Wrote. My wife would actually
Murder
love it
She
if I
Wrote.
drew that.
I mean, you could do some gnarly murder scenes on that, and then old Angela Lansbury,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
she's
but I think I'm gonna bounce back and forth. Like I want to do a Robin Hood book one day, like an old man Robin Hood. I want to come back and do some Batman stuff, of course. I'd love to take a stab at X-Men one day. Just have to see how I feel given year to
sure.
year.
Yeah. Robin Hood. I remember oh no, I don't want to spoil, where I saw an image of Robin Hood and I was like, oh, I think you could do a kick-ass Robin Hood story. And you said, oh, I think I have one in my back pocket. I was like, okay, we're there. Sean
Yeah.
Murphy's Robin Hood.
Yeah. Yeah. I got one for the next one after this Zorro will be called The Last Driver. It'll be like uh uh Vanishing Point meets Mad Max.
Nice.
It'll be a guy who has to do some heist in a short amount of time. And in the future, everyone drives these really wimpy Google pods, and no one knows how to actually drive anymore. So he's
Mhm.
from the desert where, there's no civilization, and they call him in because he's the only one that actually knows how to drive to get from A to B and solve this crazy heist. It's just an excuse to draw some car porn,
I
obviously.
was gonna say Mad
Yeah,
Max. It's just well, yeah, that makes sense.
yeah. I mean, it'll be
Murphy's
it'll
Mad
be like
Max.
yeah, it'll be like my escape from New York.
Awesome. Okay, my mind's wandering. Um, this and Kickstarter launches October 5th.
Yep.
And then in how long does that, because I'm still kind of new. I've only backed a few things on Kickstarter, but there's
Yeah,
a window of getting to pledge.
yeah. There's 1 month.
Okay.
And the reason I like Kickstarter over Indiegogo, and I don't have any problem with either campaign, any platform. On Kickstarter, you can change the dials on your order as much as you want. Nothing is withdrawn from your bank account until 30 days. When the
Mhm.
campaign ends, that's when you're cut off, and whatever you have in the system, you're getting. So if you want to go, there's early bird specials, for example. So like first 100 people to buy whatever get like a bit of a discount. So that's what's worth popping in early before everything gets scooped up. The drawn into a cover tier, for example, is only going to have 10 spots. So I think those will go fast. Um, so you usually see a spike at the beginning of the month, people get interested, and then it sort of plateaus for 20 days, and then you get a spike at the end. So the trick is to sort of try to find ways to like tease it, add tiers and bonuses and things like that. Massive is helping me figure out ways to maximize that. So I'm excited to see how it goes. But yeah,
Nice.
October 5th. I'm not sure what time of day yet.
That was my next one. It was like, is it
Yeah,
12:01 a.m. Eastern, or does it have a certain time, or
I will
what?
let people
But
know. Yeah, I've got
okay.
people all over the world who want because they're gonna do the math. Like, all right, so East Coast America, what time do I, because they're gonna miss out on tiers, and I know they're really passionate. So I'm gonna try to figure out a time, give everyone proper notice, and I apologize if I drop the ball.
I mean, in all seriousness, how kind of cool is that though? That for you, that there are literally people around the world that are waiting for signing up to like
Yeah.
pledge that they want your work.
No,
That's pretty cool.
yeah, you never get used to it, honestly. That's why
Yeah.
I really love going to shows and meeting people because, like, I know
Hmm.
how hard it is to save for a ticket, get a babysitter, bring the kids with you, and to stand in line just for like 2 minutes to talk to a Batman artist. Like, how dare anyone be rude or disrespect that? Um, Really, I'm there for them. Like, I think where a lot of creators get arrogant, let me describe it this way. It's like when someone comes up to your table, they're like a Ghostbuster, and they shoot their beam at you.
Yeah.
Uh, and it makes you feel good because you think that you're the rock star. But I think the trick is to step aside, let that beam go past you and hit Batman or hit your work. So that way you're not absorbing the praise. You are there with that person celebrating your mutual love for Batman. I think it's a really fine difference between creators that let stuff go to their heads and
Hmm.
creators that manage to stay grounded.
Yeah. And I mean, bringing it back around to like the beginning, I think maybe that's a part in which not like I mean, I joked with Azarello. It's not he wasn't,
Yeah, like that guy that hates you.
negative.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we all
That guy
remember.
that hates me. I mean, everybody was really pleasant too, but I mean, it is you can kind of feel. I think like you were pretty grounded too, and it felt like that's cool. It's refreshing, and then nothing would piss you off more, I guess, than to meet someone and then they're an asshole, and you're like, well, I don't
Yeah,
want his Batman stuff now because it comes with
I
baggage.
know.
He's a dick.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
used to like, I'm gonna go burn his books now and all that stuff because nobody does
I
that
think
anymore.
I think readers expect creators to be a little off. They don't mind if we're a little rude or a little arrogant or a little bit acerbic. So I think readers are giving us the benefit of the doubt
Hmm.
because artists be weird sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So, but I would rather not get any excuse for being a dick. I'd rather
Don't give
just
him
be
any ammo. Don't give him any
yeah.
ammo. I think like the last question on like Kickstarter, then I want to wrap up because I want to respect your time. What's roughly like so it'll be open for a month and then it will close. Then roughly how, I don't know a better way of phrasing it because this almost sounds like it's negative, but how long until the shipment
Yeah.
comes in and starts moving?
So I'm halfway done the whole book. I've got 45 pages done and getting colored right now. So it'll take me another 3 months to finish up, and after that we'll go to press. So if we finish at the November 1st or November 5th, we wrap up.
Mm-hmm.
You will be getting your stuff December, January, February. Let's say March to be safe.
Oh, okay.
Usually Kickstarters have like a 1 or 2 month delay. I'm trying to avoid that. I thought I'd be further along than I am right now, but yeah, I don't want to keep anybody waiting. So I think maybe at most 4 or 5 months. I'd like to get
Okay.
people their stuff as soon as possible.
Awesome.
I know that if you go to your shop, you'll probably see issues 1 and 2 hit the shelf before you get your tier. But by the time issue 3 comes out, we want you to have everything.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. There you go. October 5th. We'll put this will be posted on Batman on Film's website.
Yeah. I'll give you a
the
link.
Yeah, I was gonna say the link will be
Follow-
included.
Yeah, the Kickstarter isn't active now, but you can follow the page. We've got like 2,500 people already looking, which is a really good sign.
Oh, good.
If you want to get in on those early tiers, great. If you just want to support your LCS and skip the Kickstarter, that's
Sure.
fine too. I'm happy to do either.
Yeah, I mean, that was a question I was even going to ask you because I signed up for the notify upon launch or whatever the words actually are, and I wondered where it's sitting now of like, oh, is that a good sign? Do you expect more? Do you usually expect less? Like, where does this sit? So that's
I
good
don't
that it's
know.
encouraging.
Yeah, no, we didn't do this tactic with plot holes. I didn't know it was an option to set up a page to collect people. My friend Jimmy Palmiotti told me that what we're doing is good, but we should have waited until 2 weeks before the launch. Like, don't have the page available 2 months ahead of time. And I'm not sure why, but
Hmm.
it's kind of a moving target. So we'll see what we see, and hopefully we'll get better at it next time.
It's a test run. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, hey, I really mean it. Thanks again for agreeing to
Yeah.
sit down and talk to me about this. I know the whole reason you're here is to plug Zorro's or anything else you want to plug,
Oh.
what your Instagram, anything like that.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I think I'm Sean Gordon Murphy.
There you go.
I'm off Twitter, but my assistant, my art dealer, tweets for me from time to time. Yeah, sorry, I wish I had a better answer. I think that
No,
mostly
no,
I'm
that's
just here to talk about the
Yep.
Kickstarter.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How
Oh,
do
and
you-
can I
Yeah.
back at the beginning when I said to you, shouting that you love Batman's penis at Azzarello, I realized that people might not know why that's. But Azzarello did the notorious book where you could see Batman's dong, and that's why. Thank you. That's
Got
why.
it.
Okay. I'm like, ooh, I don't know if that went over that well.
No, no, I mean, and that was part of the reason I brought it here. So I actually got to meet Lee in person. Of all places, he was downtown Chicago for a signing on like a Thursday afternoon once. And I worked downtown Chicago. So on a lunch
Yeah.
break, I got to go down and actually talk to him, and he signed this.
Yeah.
And I was like, awesome. And then Brian was there too. And I'm like, oh, I need to sell this. Not
Yeah.
sell.
No, I know what you
Sign
mean.
this.
Yep.
I don't know that I want to sell this, but it's just like I know that it's hard to find this issue of Batman's dick,
Is that- so
unfortunately,
that's
that's
actually-
the name of the issue.
That's the first edition of it.
Yeah, the only edition of issue number 1. Yeah.
That's right. They didn't go back to print.
They didn't. I mean, that was pretty dumb. They got a
I
lot of
thought that
attention. They
they-
could have sold more.
Thought they blacked it out and then put them back out or something. Is that not true?
Single issues. Nope, never reprinted. And then the digital ones, they even colored up the area. And then the hardcover that came out, it's colored,
Right.
even blackened
Man.
up on that. Yeah.
That's why we can't have nice things.
I know. Marketing gold right there. Batman's pull.
Yeah, but they want
But
Warner Brothers wants to sell pajamas and games. They don't want you thinking about Batman's dick.
which
So,
is also so funny. DC Black Label purposely created as a more
Nope.
mature audience line, and yet now we're not going to do that. What about
Yep,
kids?
can't-
Think of the kids, Sean.
can't. I mean, that's the thing is I kept having to edit White Knight stuff for language, and adult themes or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I turn on, the Harley Quinn cartoon, and she's saying the C word and doing all
Yeah.
kinds of shit, shooting guns at people. It's like, how is a cartoon okay, but not for us? And DC's like, I know, we're sorry, these are just the rules. So
These are the rules, and that's what they
yeah,
all say. They've been defaulted to.
yeah.
These are the
Well,
rules.
I feel like they agree, but it's not up to them,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like I'm sitting here advocating of like put more penis in books. But
More
it's not,
dick.
but I'm saying, yeah, exactly. That's the takeaway. And that was the last time Sean ever came on the Batman on Film podcast.
It's okay. I don't mind anything. When I did a nude scene in Volume 1 with Joker and Harley, and I had her topless, but I had him topless. Like I tried to be fair with
Yeah.
whose body was showing, and but I did it knowing like I have a feeling I'm gonna have to cover this up. I just know it. And then Lee's thing happened, and it's like, thanks, Lee.
Yeah.
So I had to move some word balloons around. But there is a French edition that accidentally got published that has topless Harley. It's only a couple of squiggles. It's not that
Oh goodness.
impressive, but technically speaking, it's the first black and white edition released in France of White Knight has a topless Harley in it,
There you
and topless Joker, and Joker's ass too. I think.
Go to eBay now, people. Throw some
Yeah.
money their way. I think actually it was. I don't know if it was still through your Twitter that time or Instagram, but that's where I kind of learned of like it's, in Europe. And now I'll shut up. But like Europe's, like the U.S. is kind of really weird about like nudity and stuff. Where Europe's just like it's art, dude. Like whatever.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah, no,
we make it weird.
Yeah, like we're very the culture war stuff is interesting. Like most countries don't understand what woke is or what the big deal is. Like it's
Yeah.
what seems very important right now. What we're arguing about in this country is like not on the radar of most other places, for better or worse. You know?
Yeah. Sure.
But
Huh.
yeah, as far as nudity goes, yeah, they're very liberal about that stuff, which is weird because the liberals here they think it's inappropriate, so they're gatekeepers now, and that's what the conservatives used to do. So yeah, it all changes.
We're all figuring it out forever, indefinitely, I guess.
There you go.
We're in it together. So thanks again, Sean. Remember, Kickstarter October 5th. The link is in the write-up here on Batman on Film. And so for Sean, I'm Ryan, and now announcer Rachel is going to take us out.
Thank you, sir.
You've been listening to the original and official podcast of the Batman on Film website. Follow BOF on Threads at the Batman on Film. Follow BOF on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Batman on Film. To keep BOF up and running, go to patreon.com/BatmanOnFilm, or you can buy BOF a beer at buymeacoffee.com/TheRealBatmanOnFilm. For Jet and everyone at BOF, I'm announcer Rachel. Authoritative, definitive, the original. Batman on Film, founded in 1998.
Say goodbye, Graceland.